all-team class lining up, preparing to go. So in the next few minutes, we've got almost 200 sailors setting off double-handed from the start line just off Le Havre to the Caribbean island of Martinique. I'm Alec Wilkinson. Beside me is yachting journalist Andy Robertson, who's here working for the race. And Andy, we'll go into the changes in format and all the breaking news from the race in a moment. But as an event, it is unique, and the atmosphere is always awesome, isn't it, here in the port of Le Havre? It's
incredible. It always is. The thing that's most impressive is the number of people that come through the gates and go round the docks. You get super close up to the teams and to the boats and to the skippers, and really it's a public event. You know, in France, these big races, the Transat Jacques Vabre and the Route de Rome, the Vendée Globe, it's all about people coming to dream, to share the dreams and enjoy the atmosphere. And it's a family event, and this, of course, is holiday time in the autumn.
We're about 7 or so minutes away from the start of the all-team. So let me just run through the changes, the race format, and how things are going to work over the next hour and a half or so. We've got 4 boat classes in the race. The all-teams that we're looking at, and the slightly smaller Ocean 50 multi-hulls that are going to make their grand entrance in a while. We've got the IMOCAs and the Class 40 monohulls as well. However, in the last few hours, the race format has been dramatically torn up and thrown out of the window. A huge low-pressure front is heading this way from across the Atlantic. And so the race organisers have decided this. The IMOCAs will not start today. They're staying in dock until the storm passes. And that has huge implications for the fleet, for whom this is also part of the Vendée Globe qualification process. We have Pip Hare, who was due to race today. She will join us in the studio to go into all the implications and what it will mean to the class. Then we have the C40s and the the Class 40s and the Ocean 50s, as we watch our French colleagues from France 3 reporting live from the start boat. Those 2 classes, the 40s and the Ocean 50s, they will be starting today, but they will then head to Lorient, where they will take shelter from the storm. The all teams that we are looking at here with Gitana are the only class whose plans are unchanged. They will start the race, they will head off to Martinique. Start format also changed. Gone is the mark at Etretat, close to the iconic white cliffs where the fans gather to cheer the boats on. The fleet will still race along a shortened coastal course, though, before heading to the Cherbourg Peninsula, eventually heading out to the out of the channel down towards the Bay of Biscay. But before all that, let's enjoy this staggered start. The all teams are going to go first, with the 2 other classes following at 12-minute intervals. And there is the weather that we are being warned about. You can see how angry and purple it's looking.
That's right. The key thing is these 2 systems amalgamating and come into the Cape Finisterre. Forecast is seeing winds up to 80 knots off Cape Finisterre late on Monday, and 10 to 12 metre seas. And so the big problem is really that there's no place to hide for the IMOCA 60s in particular, whereas, as Alex said, the Class 40s and the multi-50s are going to go into Lorient. It's about 320 miles racing. It's very much like a Figaro-style short course, and it's going to be much shorter, much more intense race. And then looking very quickly at the course as it stands just now. So the old team's going all the way down, round San Pedro, Sao Paulo, down to Ascension Island. Now the intention still is that all 4 classes should arrive in Martinique and Fort-de-France around about the same time. So the courses will be altered for the IMOCA, for Class 40 and for the multi-50s.
So 4 classes, 4 courses at the moment, 1 for each class of different lengths. I suspect over the next few days, and we were discussing this earlier, Andy, that all those distances will change, except for the all teams. Because they're bigger, because they're faster, they're hoping to outrun that storm and complete their 7,500 nautical mile course to Martinique.
This is the time gun.
So 4 minutes from the start, and what we're looking at, I think let's run through the runners and riders here in this class. We've got 5 boats competing again this year, and they really are the giants of the sea. The stats say 32 meters long, 23 meters wide, but honestly, until you stand beside them in the dock, you really don't get an idea of how big they are until you see them with your own eyes. So that Banque Populaire covering an area of 3 tennis courts. That is how big they are.
Indeed, and Banque Populaire is just beaten Gitana. Now, Gitana, or Maxi Edmond de Rothschild, to give it its full name, has been the dominant whole team over the last 3 years, has won all the races, including the Route de Rome, the solo race last year. Now Banque Populaire just won a 24-hour race in for the all-team class by a matter of just 3 minutes, I think it was. And so there's great excitement in France that the monopoly of Maxi Banque Populaire may be at an end. That's the suspicion, but it's really wide open. Banque Populaire has clearly made improvements over the winter. The big thing is that the improvements, everybody's super secretive about what's changed, particularly in Banque Populaire, particularly with the Gitana. But really, I'm pretty sure we're going to see a real close race.
So the support crew from Actual now leaving the boat with about, 3 minutes to go to the start. Under that now, Anthony Marchand and Thierry Chabagny on board Actual, saying goodbye to their crew. Banque Populaire, I think, have already said goodbye to theirs. Lazatique with Francois Gabard.
And Tom Leperche.
And Tom Leperche on board. And leaving it nice and tight, 2 minutes to go.
Indeed, it's always leave it till the very, very last minute. But there's a great moment of stress, I suppose, when the skippers take over for themselves, and it's really up to them. Of course, all teams have onshore routing. They have a team who work 24/7, who will help with the weather strategy. They're in constant contact. And so, of course, this all-team race and indeed the Ocean 50s, it's all about the race that is on land as well, and who can deliver the best strategy.
You can look at the weather conditions there on board today, but Thomas Coville in his 8th TJV, alongside him Thomas Ruxel in his 3rd TJV, hugely experienced, big names in the world of French sailing. So we're into the final minute. They'll be speeding up, heading towards that start line, but in such a long race, it's not necessarily about getting across the line first. It's about getting across the line safely and not too early, because there's a penalty if you do.
That's right. There's a 5-hour penalty if you're over the start line early. Now that 5-hour penalty requires you to sail through an imaginary gate, as it were, wait for 5 hours, sail back through the gate, continue on the course. So we've seen that penalty in various different races over recent years, imposed on the IMOCA class in particular. Had a quick look there at, Alec was saying, Actual. Now this is the first big offshore race on Actual, or ocean race on Actual, for Anthony Marchand and Thierry Chabagny. And the other key thing for the all teams is that they're racing a solo round-the-world race starting on the 7th of January.
The Transat Jacques Vabre 2023 is underway. The all teams facing a course then of 7,500 nautical miles, and I wonder just how many twists and turns await them over the next week to 10 days before they cross the finish line in Martinique. And it is looking absolutely glorious out there. A few hours ago we had torrential rain, we had leaden skies, but it's cleared up wonderfully for our cameras. The all teams are go. Sedebo and Banque Populaire are go, with Amel Leclerc and Sebastian Josse closest to the camera there.
Indeed, Banque Populaire. Sebastian Josse previously was skipper of Maxi Edmond de Rothschild, and then was passed over with Charles Caudrelier, who sailed the last race, the last TJV, with Frank Camas. And Camas now sailing with Jeremy Bayou in the Imoca class. And Charles Caudrelier joined by Erwin Israel, who previously was part of their routing team. They're one of their navigation specialists. So he's on board. He knows the boat extremely well and has been racing in the two-handed races this season. So Banque Populaire winding up now and showing remarkable speed. Look how flat their angle is to the water. In actual, there these newcomers to the class just taking it slightly easier, but
and I think it's the reefed sail is telling of the sort of conditions that they're expecting and the conditions that are out there at the moment. We're currently looking at something like 25 knots.
Maybe just a little bit less, but it is expected to go up to 25 knots, 30 in the gusts tonight. And really it's about keeping safe all the way down across the Bay of Biscay, just trying to make sure they outrun these big systems coming in. And they should be clear down into the Portuguese trades, certainly by late tomorrow.
We're looking back at this Edmond de Rothschild manoeuvre. Can't quite work out what they were trying to do there, but
they're certainly back on course, and
they are
certainly slowed there.
It slowed them down, but nothing to concern them for the moment, as Charles Caudrelier and Erwin Israel, two hugely experienced sailors. I mean, we're really looking at the rock stars of French sailing. L'Azotique with Francois Gabard on boards, won this race in 2015, just missed out to Charles Caudrelier in the last edition of the race in 2021.
And this is going to be Francois' last race on board. He's handing over the reins, as it were, to young Tom Laperche, who's very much in Francois' image. He's a young sailor who won the Solitaire de Figaro a couple of years back, and he was brought onto the team. He's a super talented sailor, great engineer and technician, very, very driven, and he will be racing the solo round the world race starting, as I say, at the end of the first week in January, and Gabard will be on shore.
The boat almost 3 years old now.
That's right, but of course they had a significant problem after the boat was built, because it was deemed not to be in the all-team class. And it was really only just before the Route de Rhum last year that it was allowed into the class. There was a class rule which said that the sails should be trimmed from outside and not inside, in essence. And that fortunately was changed just before the Route de Rhum. So that did really impact on how they optimised and sailed the boat over the preliminary period, whereas the other teams were racing and working up the boats all the time.
About 7 minutes to go to the next start, which will be the Ocean 50s. So lots of time to enjoy these majestic boats out on the water, and they are heading towards the coastline. The coast and the cliffs, the white cliffs of this Normandy region, are generally packed with people. It may be a little bit windy today. We'll have to see if we get a shot of them later on. But it is a scene to behold if they are there cheering on the boats. But they won't be going as close to the cliffs as is normal because of the conditions. The race organisers obviously wanting to avoid any chance of scuppering these boats' chances of making it all the way to Martinique and be disastrous.
You can see these big gusts coming through just to weather there with SVRT Lavertig just taking off in these big gusts. So too now just hitting Edmund de Rothschild. So in their routing team now with Erwin Israel on board, we have Simon Fisher, the British winner of the Ocean Race, or 2 times winner of the Ocean Race. He's in the routing team for Maxi Edmund de Rothschild, along with a well-known French sailor. And there we're just looking at Actual. Actual was the previously Massif, run as Actual by Yves Le Blevec, who in the same way has passed on the reins, as it were, passed on the helm to Anthony Marchand, who sailed with him previously. So there's a kind of transference of skills and knowledge. And Anthony will sail the solo maxi race next year.
Marchand's did this race coming 4th 2 years ago in this very same boat with Yves Le Blevec.
So this is more and more what we're starting to see with French ocean racing very much at its peak just now. Teams or skippers starting to form teams and expand their horizons as they get older. So we have, for example, Jeremy Bayou in the Imoca class has got a second boat with Justine Metro, his old Imoca, previous Charal. So they're running 2 boats, same as Thomas Rion, running 2 boats, his own new boat, along with the tenant of the title, the boat which won the Imoca class last year. Sorry, the Imoca class last edition, and that being now with Sam Goodchild and Antoine Koch. So we are now looking at the Ocean 50s, just setting up for their start in just under 4 minutes, as you see.
6 boats taking part in this class. We've got Coesio, we've got Le Rire Médecin, La Motte, Primonial, Realities, Solidaire, En Peloton, and Viablis Ocean, which some of those names you will recognize if you've followed this race in the past, and we'll be switching backwards and forwards between the all teams and the Ocean 50s. But those Ocean 50s now getting underway in 3.5 minutes time. And less than 4 hours separated the top 3 finishers for the Ocean 50s in 2021, which is extraordinary, really, when you think how long a race that is. About 5,800 nautical miles is the plan.
And certainly the expectation is that the time differences will be much the same this time. That was the feedback we had with Sam Goodchild, who did the last edition in the Ocean 50, finishing 3rd.
Yeah, Sam, the only Briton in the fleet last time around. This time, the whole of the Ocean 50 fleet is French. And that is Coesio, with Erwan Leroux and Audrey Augereau on board.
Erwan won the Pro Sailing Tour this year, the most experienced skipper in the class. Indeed, I think the president of the class. And the class growing all the time. We have 2 new boats in this fleet, brand new and relatively untested. A couple of boats in the wings, waiting to join next year. But they really are pretty fragile, and I know that their biggest concerns is keeping the boats upright over the next 24 to 36 hours, and it's really going to be stressful for these teams.
And you can see just how they're bouncing around on that chop. This boat bottom left of the screen, just getting things back under control. We were talking about the size of the all teams and how they're the giants of the sea. Well, these aren't far off either. 15 meters long, 15 meters wide. Yep, they're a square. That's just about longer than a London bus, just to help you picture the size of them.
So the two new boats are Reality, which is sailed by Fabrice Carrière and Aymeric Chapelier. Now, Aymeric sailed with Sam on the last race and is a very, very experienced Ocean 50 racer. And the other new boat is Primonial, which is sailed by Sébastien Rogue and Jean-Baptiste Gellet. And again, both these new boats have not done a big ocean race. And increasingly, the new boats are slightly more orientated towards in-show racing.
Solidaire en peloton here with Thibaut Vauchel-Camus and Quentin Valminic on board. Quentin doing his second TJV and amongst favourites to win, which is why our French director is picking up those shots of them.
Yeah, I mean, the key thing there is Quentin used to be the skipper of the boat, won the Pro Sailing Tour last year, has passed over the boat to Thibaut. Thibaut has done many TJVs, finished second in 2019. And also, I think he was second previously in Class 40 a few years back, as indeed Sébastien Rogue won that year in the Class 40.
So Coesio with Erwan Leroux as the main skipper, a 3 times winner of the TJV, but second in
Look at
the
that start.
last
I mean,
event.
that's pretty close given the conditions.
So the Ocean 50s are away in this 2023 Transat Jacques Vabre, and look how reefed the that sail is on Realities. It doesn't seem to be having that much of effect.
No, they don't need much sail area on this in this wind strength to go, and as I say, it's all about staying safe, staying consistent. And Coesio, Erwan Leroux sailing with the Audrey Augeroux, the first mixed team in this class. Audrey is an ex-NACRA sailor, an Olympic trialist who's sailed with Erwan all of this season. As they won their team, because the Pro Sailing Tour is a team event, crewed event, and she won with them in that team. But Reality then up to windward, the new boat with Aymeric Chapelier and Fabrice Carrière.
And I just wonder, well, it's going to be a steep learning curve for them, isn't it, in these conditions on a new boat. And it's interesting how, you know, sometimes you think, well, a new boat, it's going to be faster, it's going to be better, but equally the experience of having sailed a boat and being on an older boat that is tried and tested could often be a bigger advantage than the technical advantage of being on a newer boat. The Ocean 50s now following the same coastal route that we've just seen the all teams complete. And the footage from on board the boats when that is beamed back to us is going to be absolutely stunning. So both skippers, the skipper and the co-skipper, will be involved at this stage of the race. They, remember, have to get themselves overnight through the English Channel. Look at Primonial up in the air.
So just remembering they are going to Lorient, which means going through probably 2 changes of tide. They're going to head across to the Cap de la Hague, which is the tip of the Cherbourg Peninsula, where the tide will change around about 6 o'clock this evening. Then through the Alderney race, which is super tidal. We'll have wind over tide there. It'll be really, really difficult with big seas. And then turning left in towards the French coast as the tide builds. And then round the corner through the main tidal situations there on the Pointe de Raz, and then into Lorient breeze should lighten, but I mean, look at these images. You just see the strength of the wind.
Unbelievable.
This is
Primonial,
yes, Seb Rogue, who's got so much experience in the class. Very, very much life on the edge, and we're only a matter of minutes into this race.
And what's interesting as we watch these stunning shots from our choppers, that the Ocean 50, you know, you were talking about the Pro Sailing Tour, which is what they normally compete in. You know, it's mostly about close contact racing, a lot of careful starts, tactics, but the TJV is normally long-term strategy, you know, preserving the boat, getting it across the Atlantic. But in a way, they're doing a shorter race first, aren't they, to Lorient? So it'll be interesting to see how their mindset has changed and if we're going to see them push it harder.
Indeed. I think that most of them are just hoping to get into Lorient in good shape, in one piece with no repairs. And then it's a little bit of a waiting game. Nobody knows when they'll restart.
Yeah, so let's just explain how this is going to work then. So we've got the Class 40s that we will see start their race at 13:41, so in about 20 minutes' time. They and these boats, the Ocean 50s, are going to head to Lorient. They're going to sit out the storm. We don't know how long that is going to take, and then they will set off again. And then it's an aggregate time.
That's right. You go through the finish line, and then there'll be a new start time, or a new start line in a few days' time. And then it's a second stage, if you like, down to Martinique. And as we say, we expect the course to be altered, to be shortened. The primary focus is for the race direction, other than obviously safety and having an equitable race, is trying to make sure that all the classes arrive into Martinique round about the same time window to maximise the spectacle for the finish. So there's Lamotte. Now this is Luke Berry, who is in fact English born. He's dual nationality, ex-Class 40 racer, took on this boat this year. He's a naval architect who graduated out of Southampton. Started working for Bureau Veritas, I think, initially, and then decided that, I think he started in the Mini and then progressed through Class 40, and then joined the Ocean 50 class this year.
Yep, with Antoine Joubert on board as well. So it's kind of the newcomer in the old hand, isn't it? Luke Berry still learning the ropes on this very different boat from the Class 40. But he does have the experience of Joubert beside him. And you see that in this double-handed race, you see that a lot, where you've got the youngsters either coming through as skipper with an experienced co-skipper or vice versa.
Indeed, Luke Berry was pretty successful in the Class 40 and has come into this. He's bought this is the oldest boat in the fleet, 2009 boat, which was previously Actual, Réauté, Chocolat, and the old Primonial. And they're looking at reality. And it stands to reason that, of course, yesterday we had an announcement that there will be no spectator boats below a certain size, so it's all big, powerful boats which are on the water today. As you can pretty much see why, eh?
Some extraordinary shots there from our cameraman on the camera boat. And really, the normal boat that was speeding alongside them gives you an idea of just how choppy it is, because although it's looking difficult for these Ocean 50 sailors, they still make it look so much easier than the monohulls sailing alongside them. So Le Médecin, Le Rire Médecin with Luke Berry closest to us. And race officials there alongside the course. Primonial on the left of screen with a winner from the last event, Seb Rogue, in his 4th TJV. He won the 21 edition with Mats Subin. And it was close. We were talking about how close the all teams were. Well, the Ocean 50s saw Primonial win it by, it was a little over 2 hours from Coesio. And it was a real game of chess as they came into Martinique. Some unique seas around there as well. Some unique conditions around that Caribbean island.
For sure, I think these teams are duos happy that they're only going to Lorient. But it's going to be a tough night and day tomorrow for them. And of course, these are long nights now in November. And going in close to the coast, there's nets or lots of fishing pots. As many of the Figaro sailors who are in the class 40 know that coast extremely well.
Now I'm losing track of when all the different announcements were made. We knew the class 40.
Yesterday the announcement that was made, there was that class 40 would. It was yesterday morning we heard that class 40 would go to Lorient.
Well, the Ocean 50.
The Ocean 50s was only this morning, as indeed with the Imocas.
With the Imocas, yeah.
But the key thing for the Imocas is that obviously there's a fleet of 40. There's 60 footers with foils, and so there are no big open marinas or spaces which can accommodate the Imoca fleet. And of course the difference in speeds means that really they're making the decision based on the slower boats. So we're talking to Pip here, and she was saying that actually she would have just been okay at Cape Finisterre, but some boats would have been a matter of 150 or 200 miles behind. And so the decision was made in respect of them who would have been right in the worst of the storm.
Well, we were hoping to speak to Pip. We were hoping she was going to come by the commentary box. Maybe that's still going to happen a little bit later on.
No, for sure, she's on her way.
Yeah, the point is that these Ocean 50s suddenly this morning discovered they were only going to Lorient. They weren't going all the way to Martinique, and that will have triggered a whole load of work for both the shore crew and the skippers as they decide what to take, what not to take, what could be transported to Lorient by vehicle, by land, and what they were going to carry with them on board the boat, which maybe sails to leave behind, what food, how much water. I know that was certainly the big discussion dockside in the class 40s yesterday, but for the Ocean 50s they've probably had the tougher time out of all of them because the Imocas are staying, so not too much of an issue for them. But for these guys it was a real quick chopping and changing on board to try and get things optimized for the shorter leg into Lorient. And there you can see just how hard they're working. Luke Berry and Antoine Joubert there. How they decide their shift pattern, so to speak, their watch, is entirely up to the preference, of course, of the skippers. It's different on board each boat. There are those who choose longer and shorter watch times, allowing them to get some sleep. And Solidaire de Peloton looking good there, with Thibaut Vauchel-Camus and Quentin Flaming.
So I said it was previously Quentin's boat, but the sponsorship with Arkema came to an end and it was passed over. So he's sailed the boat for many years, has loads of experience on it, and a great partnership who, are certainly among the favourites.
Yeah, and you've got to look at that experience. He sailed this same boat in the last edition with Rouquayrol, and that experience, of course, will be a huge help going forward. So we should be now enjoying the start of the Imocas, but That's not to be because of a storm front coming in across the Atlantic. They are staying ashore. They will head off in a few days' time. It's a shame, it's disappointing, but it's good news for us because it means that Pip Hare, who should be about to cross the start line, is instead in the commentary box, where it is, I have to say, much warmer and much drier. Pip, thanks for joining us.
No problem. Yeah, I've just kind of run up the dock to get here, and it is pretty blustery out there.
It is. We've been enjoying some stunning images from the water. A lot of reefed sails, and you can't blame them, can you? No,
I mean, I have to say, from here, it looks pretty spectacular. If I had to choose, I think I'd rather be in an old team. The Ocean 50s as ever look like wild little go-karts, don't they? But certainly we're not going to see much sail on anybody's boats today.
So let's just talk through the happenings of this morning and the decision to delay the start. Do we know how long you're going to be in port?
No, we don't know. So we were all prepared to go. I came down onto the boat at 7 a.m. this morning, was just kind of doing my final routing. And then the techs got a message, the fleet got a message saying that the start would be postponed. Unlike the other fleets, we're not going to do a short leg, basically because there's nowhere for us to go. All of the ports are busy, full. So we're staying here. We have a briefing at 6 p.m. this evening where they will give us further news, but from my reading of it, I think we could be here for a week because we've got our kind of monster low that's causing all the problem for us, and then it looks like there's another one coming in straight behind that. Yeah.
Okay. So for the uninitiated, you know, just let's talk about this weather front. You know, how bad is it? What does it actually mean, you know, when you're out there? Why? Some people would say, well, hang on a minute, these boats are built to go round the world in all sorts of conditions. It's the Vendée Globe, you know, that's the ultimate target. So how can this be any worse than that?
Well, the problem is that kind of on races like the Vendée, once we're out into the ocean, we get to choose our path through these weather systems or around them. And actually, the boats are so fast now that we can maneuver away from weather systems. However, whenever you encounter a race start or even a race finish, then geography defines your course, and you cannot avoid these weather systems. At this time of year, a weather front coming up the western approaches and into the Biscay is relatively normal, but this one that's coming in Wednesday is particularly aggressive. It will have a big sea state behind it, and as it approaches Finisterre, where the continental shelf is, that means huge breaking waves and damage to boats, damage to people, and it's just not a good idea to head out into that.
And is that the general feeling amongst the fleet? Are there some who are thinking, wow, we could have gone?
I think in general the response among the fleet is that this is the correct decision, largely because, you know, those of us that were looking for options, bailout options, realised that there were very few. But you know, you have to accept the decision of the race committee. I think we would have preferred a little bit more notice, but you know, they've done the best they can in difficult conditions.
Class 40s are about 7 minutes away from the start of their race. What has the decision meant for you guys? Has it meant a lot of extra work, or have you just mothballed everything, locked the door and gone?
It does mean a lot of extra work, and especially for us because we're an international team. So obviously when we arrive at a race start, we have to have the whole team on tour with us. And right now I need to kind of take my hat off to the person who manages our logistics, Melanie, because this morning she had her head in her hands looking at accommodation, ferry bookings, carnets, all sorts.
You'll be sailing with Nick Bubb. I think he's off home.
Well, yes, yeah. I mean, at the moment we have a reasonable assumption that it's going to be kind of 5 to 7 days, and just kind of taking the ferry home to spend some time with family or just relax. is, you know, as good an option as any.
Now, the Class 40, you know all about these boats and life on this circuit, on the smaller boats. For them as well, it's been a lot of work, because the announcement that they would be going to Lorient to sit out the storm has meant changing what they've got on board. I know some were removing water, some were removing fuel.
Yes, yeah, so they will have provisioned for 3 weeks at sea. They will have, you know, all of that food, water, fuel, tools, spares, and that is a significant weight. And in a racing class like the 40s, extra weight will slow you down. And I think, you know, they've got an awesome opportunity here to have a really punchy little leg to Lorient, and those guys who want to kind of push hard in this definitely will have lightened their boats.
44 boats competing in the Class 40 fleet. Well, at the last count anyway. They're 12-metre monohulls. We're expecting the leading boats to take, what, about 16 days to reach the finish line?
Yes, yeah, it's kind of 16, 17 days, I think their routing was looking like. They're powerful little boats, and actually kind of upwind. The new generation of these boats can hold their own against the older generation of the Amokas, which are 20 foot longer.
We've got about 5 minutes, maybe 4 minutes now to the start of the Class 40, and we've seen the multi-hulls go. How is the sailing experience on board these monohulls different?
So I think probably the monohulls, you certainly compared to the old teams, the monohulls, you might be surprised to know, are a lot less stable. They're a lot more bouncy, bumpy. You know, I think they're more affected by the size of the waves, but also the wave period. And you can see here, okay, that most of them are just kind of going around with just their mainsails, but you can see how the waves really affect them. They affect the momentum, they push the boats around. So I think it's going to be, for them, a very aggressive sea state. They're going to have to be quite active, because we're expecting a lot of squalls today. So I think, you know, they will be pushing, maybe going between their Solent. You can see somebody there has a throw up, actually, which I think is quite punchy. So they're going to be swapping sails quite a lot to keep the speed up, or you can see someone there already looking to furl their J3 by the looks of it. I think they might have a few problems. You never really want to let your sail flap like that. I think they're struggling maybe to get it under control. But too, you know, we're looking at this start here, and actually the beauty that the multi-hulls had was fewer people in the class, so kind of most people would pick a similar strategy to start. But all of these guys, 44 boats, kind of, you're really going to have to think about your start line, but also keep a really good lookout at the moment for other boats. It's pretty busy out there.
In the middle of the fleet there, with the red and white boat near the start, Ian Lipinski and Antoine Carpentier, hugely experienced pair on board Credit Mutuelle, with their relatively new boat from 2019. Amongst the favourites, as are Aidan Red. We've got 15 international sailors here from 8 different countries as we count down into the last 2 minutes towards the start line. There's an incredible age range in the actual boats themselves. We've got the oldest from 2006, Revan Pet de Vue, and a handful of new boats built this year as well. And the bow is the big giveaway to how new they are or not.
That's right. In fact, the scow bows have been in for probably 3-4 years now, and in fact we've had 10 new boats built since last year. All of this scow bow, as Alex said, the original David de Raison design Credit Mutuelle is still in this fleet, still likely to be one of the contenders. But it's really the Italians who are the favourites in this race, perhaps. Certainly widely tipped is Ambrogio Beccaria, who has was second in the Route de Rhum last year, just behind Johan Richomme, and he's in this new all-Italian design Musa 40, and there are now 3 of them in the fleet, and they're great all-round boats, Italian built, Italian designed, and widely tipped in this class.
And one of those Italians, Alberto Bona on Ibsa, is alongside a Spaniard, Pablo Santurce del Arco, who actually won this.
He is the super sub. He is the dream co-skipper. He's had 3 podiums in Class 40 in successive editions. Finished 3rd with Phil Sharp and 2nd with Alex Pea, and won the last edition. And he's
with Antoine
Carpentier, who's with Ian Lipinski. So our start is gone, and look at the speed they're taking off from the start line.
A great start, a terrific start from the Class 40s, and that boat there is Coram right at the front, speeding away. Everial also with a good start.
That's Erwan Ledraulec, who won the second stage of the Les Sables Horta Les Sables race in the summer.
Cedric Chateau, Guillaume Pirouel on Sogistran behind them.
That's right, a brand new boat, Cedric Chateau and Guillaume Pirouel, very much the local heroes here, both from Le Havre and from the Normandy League. Brand new boat just in the water this summer. Guillaume is second on the La Solitaire du Figaro last year. Disappointing year for him this year, unfortunately. But they're a great team who've sailed quite a few miles in previous years.
And some of the boats just crossing the start line now with such a large fleet in these conditions. You can't blame them for just staying out of trouble.
Left there just in the middle is Xavier Macaire, who is also one of the former Figaro racers. Such an exodus out of the Figaro class into Class 40, primarily because for sponsors there's more glamour in doing these ocean races like the Route de Rhum, like this Transat Jacques Vabre. There you see Ibsa there, Alberto Bona just in the middle, and the Italian, now that's a lift 40. He, I believe, is waiting to put a Musa 40 in the water in the future, but he's one of the top contenders, as Alex said, with Pablo Santurce. This is very much going to be a solitaire, a Figaro type leg. Once they get into the once the tide changes, we can imagine them being down on the French coast trying to dodge the tide. But at the moment, a great start, and of course a record-sized fleet with the 44 boats.
Keep an eye out also for the British pair on board Tequila, Alistair Richardson, Brian Thompson.
That's right. I mean, they're lying 5th on the Class 40 rankings. I mean, we have them in the real dark horse in this fleet. It's a newer generation boat, which they brought back from the Route de Rhum. Did the Caribbean 600, did the Les Sables Horta Les Sables, I think. And Brian has lost count of the number of transatlantic passages he's done. And I think this is his 6th Transat Jacques Vabre, 2nd in the class, or 3rd in fact in Class 40. And I think they were 10th, 11th last time. But a more competitive fleet, but a newer boat for them.
Oh, one of the...
Here is, as I said, Xavier Macaire, who is also a boat builder, known as I think the Rhino in the it used to be known as the Rhino, or whatever the French equivalent of the Rhino is in the solitaire class, for his ability to sail super fast downwind. Remember a couple of years ago in the solitaire, he was like 2 or 3 knots quicker than the rest of the fleet sailing downwind on the Bay of Biscay.
Not sure what that's got to do with a Rhino, but anyway.
I think it's about the mentality and the being able to, that mentality, being able to remove your brain and just sail fast. But you can see how these scows work. It's like described to me as like a powder ski for those of you who ski. There's so much more lift in the bow.
Yeah, you can see it lifting there, can't you? And really comes into its own as we look at Nicolas Destet and Léo Debiès on Café Joyeux.
So there are still quite a number of amateur sailors in this fleet, and a growing number of, shall we say, businessmen or older businessmen who want the adventure, who are prepared to invest in the fleet and invest in a new boat or a competitive boat and take a younger, more experienced skipper with them. It's a great range of ages through the fleet. Alec talking about Aidan Red, just Basile Bourgnon on board,
yep,
who is 21. I think he's still the Benjamin, the youngest skipper in the fleet. He's just finished second in La Solitaire. His father, of course, Laurent Bourgnon, was a great Swiss skipper who won the Route to Rome, won La Solitaire at his very first time as the youngest skipper. And they're looking at Pirelli, Alagrande Pirelli, this new Musa 40 of Ambrogio Beccaria, as I say, finished second in the Route to Rome, just behind Johan Richomme. The Pip, this is making you want to be out there in a Class 40, isn't it?
Oh, doesn't it look spectacular? I mean, those long shots from the helicopter of them all streaking along. Yeah,
but I mean, you can see that, you can absolutely see the scows at work, can you?
Yeah, you can. I mean, I'm really surprised actually from this view. You can see with this angle, wind angle, how lifty they are. I mean,
it's a perfect angle for them as well, to a certain extent, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. It's great to showcase what they can do, and the speeds. You know, they must be getting up to 18, 19 knots there or more.
Not quite managed to pick up Tequila. Tequila is orange and grey. And I think these conditions very much in Brian Thompson's range, shall we say.
And actually the nice thing about starting in the bay like this is it's blustery and gusty, but actually the reality is the sea state is relatively smooth, so I think they are managing to get some really good speeds up before they head off around the Cherbourg Peninsula.
And also in this fleet we have two girls on the Cap Pourels programme, which is well, that's not looking good, is it?
Someone's lost a halyard there, yeah.
Yeah, we're talking about the Cap Pourels programme, which is an initiative launched by the race 3 editions ago. Now this provides a competitive Class 40 to two young women to give them a fast track their experience going ocean racing. And so we have Pam Lee from Ireland doing her first ocean race. They have to be rookies, Pam. So Pam previously was a préparateur based in Lorient, and so this is her first race, and quite happy to be racing to Lorient then. But
yes, it probably.
She said her flatmates would be when we used to see her home.
Probably would have seemed a little bit brutal, that initiation. But
yeah.
You know, so it's a really great scheme because, you know, one of the hardest things is to kind of step out of that team support role and into your first racing role, and so being able to offer these platforms for young women coming into the sport is fantastic.
I mean, I spoke to her a couple of days ago, and she was really on the edge, you know, just not sleeping, worried, you know, trying to just keep things together. And so this for her in particular is a real blessing, because you say it's a good introduction on a relatively short course.
And she'll come out of this with a huge amount of confidence. But you know, the thing is, we were all worried. I worry before every race start, even if the weather's absolutely perfect. You worry, and I always think that worry is just kind of an indication that I do understand what's out there, that we have covered off all eventualities, that we're kind of looking the race properly in the face, because we're aware of what could happen.
Especially in a fleet here of 40 boats. La Boulangère is Charlotte Yvain is a young female skipper in her first Class 40 programme, an ex-Figaro racer as well. But I mean, a really big number of young female skippers coming through in France now, Pip.
Yeah, there really is. I mean, I still feel the Class 40 is underrepresented with female sailors, and it's something I've kind of dwelled on a little bit, but again, kind of...
After the Vendée then, maybe.
Well, but actually, you know, Class Imoca is really... what you don't see behind the scenes of Class Imoca is how many female team managers we have, how many female technicians. And I think, you know, within Imoca, we'd still have 6 female skippers moving into kind of the next Vendée season, which is great. But I think, you know, it's much more normal now for women to be choosing this path, certainly in France.
So just in front there, we are Centricore, is Michael Mergui, who's from the Mediterranean, from the Hyères and Toulon area. Brand new boat last year. Did the route to Rome, had to stop twice for making major repairs or composite repairs, and in the end I think had to retire. So he's done a lot of work on the boat. He's back. He's a great all-round sailor, and backed by this company who I think do interiors, if I'm not wrong, have about 400 or 500 branches, and you've seen how their sponsorship really works, Pip. You see a lot of, they had big big number of people on the dock and running their VIP programs.
Yeah, it's one of the great things about a race village like this is the access to the boats, and I always describe it kind of in the equivalent to motorsport. You know, the paddocks are all behind locked doors and you can't get to access them, whereas in the week before a major race start, many people get to walk down the docks and see everything in action, see the boats up close, and it's a really great experience.
I mean, these are incredible images, aren't there, coming into this mark of these Class 40s at full speed. We can see, I think that is Eden Red just up with the leaders.
There's quite a mix across the fleet between mainsail sizes, so it seems to be kind of almost half and half with 1 reef and 2 reefs. Interesting kind of decisions, and you wonder what will happen as they kind of head round the mark and head up to the Cherbourg Peninsula. I think they're probably expecting a bit of a wind shadow off Cherbourg, where certainly a bigger mainsail will punch you through that, I think.
And you don't want to be making sail changes or unnecessary sail changes.
No, and in a short course like this, then a sail change is going to be costly. You don't lose so much with the mainsail because you can still kind of maintain your course. You just lose speed for a fraction, but kind of furling or unfurling head sails is definitely going to cost you some time, and the speeds that these boats are going, you know, relatively you lose distance.
So that's Acrobatica, which is the first or the most recent of the Musa 40s, just launched in August actually, is Alberto Riva. Now Alberto is a very good friend and previous preparateur for Ambrogio Beccaria, electronics expert who did the whole electronics on Allegrande Pirelli, and so he's on his first major ocean race, and again another skipper who's probably quite happy to have a little short course into Lorient just to warm up.
And you can see how exposed they all are. I mean, some of them have some kind of shelter from the coach roofs, but most of them are out there getting an absolutely soaked. Look at that spray coming off there. I mean, they are going to be pretty drenched already. Wow, I've got FOMO now.
I wish I did.
That just looks spectacular.
It is, and I say the key thing is the size of the fleet, but it's quite spread out already. There's Credit Mutuel and Ian Lipinski and Antoine Carpentier. Still certainly one of the favourites in the fleet, but I think suffering a little bit in these conditions in an older boat.
And this will be, you know, it is actually it's a short course, but it is quite challenging strategically. So they're going to go around the Cherbourg Peninsula, and then I expect where there will be plenty of wind shadows. We've got quite a lot of squalls coming through in the afternoon, and then I expect we will see them all tucking in. So they'll kind of tack after the Cherbourg Peninsula and then find their way through the Channel Islands and then down into the Bay of St. Malo to try and stay out of the tide. Yeah.
But as we said earlier, there's a lot of fish pots and rocks, and it's going to be a long dark night, so it's where you place the cursor, as the French say.
Well, exactly, and then and then we've got Ushant to get round, and so, you know, the course, had we all been looking to go south, the course would have been fairly straightforward after that, just to head out into the Atlantic, cross the first front and drop south, and that's what we're going to see the old teams do. But for these guys, they then have Ushant to negotiate, because their course obviously is dropping straight down to Lorient.
It does look like Ambrogio Beccaria is up there leading the fleet at the moment with Nicolas Andrieux, French co-skipper.
Some fantastically close racing, and I think the great thing about this fleet, you said it's quite diverse in terms of the age of the boats, but wherever you are in the fleet, you're going to have competition, which is great for an ocean race.
And what about the challenges of preparing and sticking to your strategy in these boats? How does it work?
So I think, you know, their routing software is incredibly accurate now. The trick really is to understand how you are going to be able to perform relative to your polars, and that's the key. You know, I think they will have certain benchmarks which will drive decision making. Oh, he just hit the buoy. Certain benchmarks that would drive their decision making afterwards, but the routing that they will have done this morning pretty much tells them every 30 seconds where they should be and what they should be doing, and their job is to maintain that pace and that speed. And if they can't maintain the speed expected by the routing, then they will have to rerun the routing on the way to work out a new strategy. So it looks like Pirelli are going round the mark again because they hit it, are they? Or they're doing something.
Not sure. Anyway, Erwan Ledralek then in a very all-round in third. Ipsa, Alberto Bona in fourth.
Yeah, there's quite a procession round now.
I think Alagrande Pirelli just trying to decide whether he has to go round the mark again or take a penalty. I guess.
Pretty sure on the SIs he has to go round again, but his problem there is going to be finding a way in now, isn't it, with that procession of boats all coming up on starboard.
So second is Interinvest. Which is Mathieu Perrault and Kevin Bloch.
Oh, there's a bit of a situation going on with Korean there. Oh, there's a crash. Oh dear.
So this mark close to the coast has given us some real drama, and look at Coram almost going over there, and Café Joyeux also coming up, and Coram
I think it is.
Coram
Life forward, Marc Lepesquieu and
just
Renault.
its bow is stuck on the stern, I think, or was briefly, of the boat in front.
Are you getting it again, I think? The Curium certainly seems to be off and running.
Ah, that's Movember. So it was Movember that had that trouble with Corium. Bertrand Guyonneau and Quito de Pavant. Hugely experienced sailor there.
Well, certainly Quito Bernard is I think the owner of the boat with the it's a new boat to them.
So quite a dramatic mark rounding there. All sorts of problems for the leading boat, Acrobatica, with Alberto Riva as skipper and Jean-Marc as his co-skipper. They touched the buoy.
Alagrande Pirelli was the boat which...
I'm sorry, yes, Alagrande Pirelli, Ambrogio Beccaria leading the fleet and then just touching the mark.
Curium seems to be okay. Doesn't seem to have any significant damage and carrying on.
They seem to, yeah, they seem to have accelerated away, And, well, time will tell when we get the reports back off that boat. And the rear of the fleet still coming into the mark.
So Averial, which is the blue and orange boat, which was round, I think, 3rd or 4th, as we said, is Erwin Leduralwek, he's racing with Tanguy Le Glatan, who is the coach for the Lorient racing pool, the racing centre in Lorient. He's a coach there. Very, very experienced racer in numerous different classes. So I think.
And that's another. Wow, did they touch the mark as well?
So this is
yes, Brittany Ferries.
That's Pam Lee and the
of Ireland.
Cap Purel programme with Tiffany Aragano, who's a young French vet, in fact, who's taken time off to do her first big ocean race. And there is Alla Grande Pirelli.
Well, I wish I could give you a list of the leading boats, but our tracker seems to have given up the ghost at the moment, so I can't do that. But there's Pirelli, well, looking in control at the moment of that fleet, as they basically come back more or less the way they came. So they headed down towards the coast, towards the cliffs there that will have had spectators on, cheering on the boats, and then they turn and head back up out of the bay and into the wilder waters of the English Channel. So that was Pip back with us. So that was all very confusing on the water, and indeed for the skippers, working out what was going on there. Was it that difficult to get those boats around the mark?
So I think by the looks of what happened was because of this sea state, I think when the boats tack, if they get a wave on the bow, it just absolutely stops them. And I think the one boat tacked in front of the other, and then all of a sudden the crossing distances were not the same because one stopped, and it really looked like he mounted the other boat. I mean, that's devastating. Always one of my biggest worries is around start lines, because months of preparation, you know, for some of these guys, years of preparation, and to have a crash like that is pretty devastating.
Well, you can see the rear of the fleet still approaching that mark. So a big gap now separating the two halves of the fleet.
Of course, the last time we saw a crash like that on a start line was the route to run between Koji and it was Oliver Here Racing, and that actually put Koji stayed behind and helped Oliver get his helped Oliver get his boat ready, but Ollie started the race about a week late, and Koji never got to finish it, which has had big implications for his Vendée qualification.
Away from IBSA. And Hare will be competing in this race in the IMOCA class.
That's right. We've got a huge IMOCA class in this race, 39 boats in total. I think we have 11 new builds, and kind of it's a really strong class, lots of different nationalities. When we eventually get going, it's going to be pretty exciting to watch. And of course, you know, we were all pretty upset to hear the news that, you know, the guy who I think was, you know, everyone's eyes were on to win, Charlie Dallan, announced a couple of days ago that he wouldn't be competing in the race. That really, unfortunately, he's very unwell at the moment. So he was going to take the start, but head down to Lorient afterwards. I'm not sure whether this changes the situation for him at all, but...
So let's talk about the implications as far as qualification for the Vendée Globe is concerned. This is a race that is important for that. The IMOCAs, the plan, and it's still there in place, that the plan is for them to race back single-handed in another qualification race. But presumably that's as we watch, Aleman is also struggling to get round the mark there, but just picking up speed. And they've got to give themselves enough room, haven't they, to sort of avoid just drifting into it.
Yeah, I wonder if there's a bit of current on that buoy as well, because we've seen quite a few of them tack, kind of stop and then go sideways into the buoy. So I just wonder whether they're all tacking a bit early, maybe.
So yeah, so where does this leave us with the IMOCAs and qualification? So Charlie Dalin, the plan was, and as far as I'm aware still is, for him to start the race. He's then going to jump off and let his crew finish the race, because it's the boat that needs to qualify, because it's a new boat.
Yeah, I mean it's slightly more complicated than that. Basically, the race that the new boats must finish is actually our return race, because it's a solo race. However, there is a ruling saying that if you start the Transat Jacques Vabre, but for technical reasons or health reasons you're not able to finish it, therefore can't do the following race, then taking the start of this race will allow you to meet those entry qualifications. But that's just for new boats. So those of us who are in old boats, so boats that have not been launched within this 4-year cycle, we qualify on cumulative mileage. So we have to sail as many races as we possibly can. And for all of us, that means the Transat Jacques Vabre and the return to base.
Let me just tell you about this boat. It's a great story. Basil Buisson is the co-skipper on board Google Chrome. He's an e-sailor. He's a gamer, and he won through a competition that saw him beat 10,000 others for a place on this boat. So at the age of 33, this guy has got himself a place on a Class 40. Kieran Le Boyne is the skipper alongside him, who knows this boat so well. It happens to be the second oldest boat in the fleet. It also happens to be the boat that Kieran Le Boyne sailed the TJV in with his dad all those years ago in 2009, and he's back now with Basil Buisson, who is, well, they've done the Fastnet, they've done a few other races to prove themselves, but my goodness, what an experience.
Basil, he's actually a merchant navy officer, I think, and so he's well used to being at sea. He's done quite a lot of cruising, but he's also, as you said, a very talented and committed gamer. But he's well used to being at sea, and I think he's reasonably accomplished. But obviously this is something completely new for him, but he's in good hands on a solid boat.
Now, we were trying to keep an eye out for tequila with the British pair on board. We haven't quite found them. Our French director hasn't picked them up. But when
this is Credit Mutuel then with Ian Lipinski and Antoine Carpentier.
Tequila was doing well. It was at the forefront of the fleet before our tracker packed up. So hopefully it's good news for those Brits.
Quick look at the weather again, just watching how these systems amalgamate coming into the Cape Finisterre. Just see the big purple centre coming and hitting. That's Tuesday, I think, and then coming into the Bay of Biscay, which is tending to suggest that the boats will be in Lorient for a little while, and potentially Pip and the IMOCAs in Le Havre for a few days at least.
So we're looking on board Credit Mutuel, the favourite, and in a good position right now near the front of the fleet. Ian Lipinski and Antoine Carpentier looking to repeat his success in 2021. Both of them involved in sailing the boats at the moment, and you can't really see them getting much rest between now and when they arrive in Lorient, given the conditions and how tough it is out there. Is this tequila? I think that might be our first view of Brian Thompson.
We can just see one of them is out of the cockpit doing something on the leeward side there. Maybe checking the lead on sheets or something like that. And you can see everybody is life jacketed up today. Fully dry sealed life jackets. They'll have harness lines on as well.
And do you approach a day like today with a very different mindset as a sailor?
I think, to be honest, it is, the mindset's always the same, and that is kind of total respect for the boat and the sea. And but I guess your approach to risk is slightly different. You know, especially at the start of a race in difficult conditions, you know, anything that might actually, for example, damage a sail or damage a person, you know, that's going to have a long-term impact on your performance. So you tend to be fairly cautious.
What's your favourite part of this course over to Martinique?
Well, I haven't actually done this TJV course before, so I've done the TJV twice, once to Itajaí, once to Salvador, but I've not done the return leg back across the equator. So, yeah, I think probably the trade wind sailing is, you know, it's always good times. It's an opportunity to push the boat. For me, something new to learn with my foils. What's not to like about that?
And the toughest part?
Well, we'll see. I mean, certainly getting out, getting away and out is really tough. It's tough mentally, it's tough physically. But I think the return leg, once we've gone round, if we go round San Pedro, Sao Paulo, the return leg up to Martinique is going to be quite difficult, because I think the fleet may compress. And so, you know, you'll be 2 weeks in, you'll be really tired, but you need to keep your foot on the gas.
Pipere, thank you very much for joining us, giving us the insight, and best of luck, fingers crossed, for whenever you guys manage to get away in the Amocas.
Thank you.
As we focus in on one of the leading boats of the fleet, the Pirelli boat, Alla Grande, with Ambrogio Beccaria and Nicholas Andrio on board.
Which I believe is Italian for all good.
Alla Grande.
Alla
yep.
Grande.
Go big. And they are. Look at that dramatic action from the waters off Le Havre. And a sign that of just how difficult things are out there, with some of them wearing crash helmets, I think. Now, you're going to be following the race for the organisation and writing about it. Apart from the beach in Martinique, what's your focus going to be?
I think trying to...
He shook his head as if he wasn't going to visit the beach.
I don't remember visiting too many beaches over the races that I've done so far, but here's hoping. But yeah, we got a little gap in between this race and the Return à la Basse, which is going to be key. But no, it's always great to be on the finish line and witness the first 2 or 3 skippers coming through. And I think this is going to be a very close race. I think it could be a close race in every class.
I think it is, and it's certainly close in these early stages of the Class 40. Pirelli, Alla Grande Pirelli looking in good position, as is Credit Mutuel, as is Tequila, with the 2 Brits on board. And so those are our leading boats from the Class 40. The all teams are go as well. And the Ocean 50s, they are away. They are heading towards Lorient, as are the Class 40s. The all teams making their way straight to Martinique as they escape from that storm that's coming in from the Atlantic. The Amocas, we hope, will get away over the next 3 or 4 days, and we will be able to bring you all that coverage on our social networks if you follow the Transat Jacques Vabre. So Pipere has left us to go off and just check on her boat. Andy Robertson, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the race, and we will leave you with these images of the Class 40s heading towards Lorient to escape the storm that is about to hit us from the Atlantic. Hope you've enjoyed it. From me, Alec Wilkinson, and from Andy Robertson, it's goodbye.